Okay, let's kick things off. We're seeing, well, just a huge number of these faceless brands popping up everywhere online, aren't we?
We really are. It feels like a major shift.
And it seems like a real challenge, because all the marketing wisdom says people connect with faces, right? Our brains are apparently just wired that way.
That's the standard thinking, yeah. But what's fascinating about the sources we looked at is how they show it's, well, not just possible to build a successful brand without showing your face, but actually kind of fun and really effective if you do it right.
Fun, I like that. So it takes some prep, especially up front, but it's doable.
Exactly. And that's really the mission for this deep dive, isn't it? To
Yeah.
kind of unpack the blueprint from these sources, the tools you need, the strategies that work, and some really critical distinctions you have to understand.
Right, like how to create captivating content when you're not the face of it.
Precisely. And getting into important concepts like SFW versus NSFW content, what they mean, and crucially, when and why you might need to think about one versus the other.
And the role of AI in all this, because it seems like it's completely changing the game for content creation.
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
We'll definitely get into the specific AI tools the sources mention, why they're useful for this faceless approach, and how you can actually turn all that created output into, well, revenue.
And importantly, what it costs or doesn't cost. The sources mention free resources too, right? So people can get started without a huge budget.
Yeah, that's key. We'll cover which tools, why you'd pick one over another, and how to dip your toes in, maybe using free options first.
Okay, so before we even get to the cool AI stuff and the visuals, the sources really hammer home this point about laying the groundwork first. One guide literally calls it step one and warns it's where people often go wrong.
It sounds basic, maybe even a bit tedious,
Mm.
but identifying your audience, it's just non-negotiable according to everything we read.
And not just demographics, like age and location.
No, you got to go deeper. The sources stress understanding their interests, their values, what keeps them up at night, to the psychographics. What do they actually do? What's their income like? And crucially, especially for a brand that lives online, where do they actually hang out digitally?
That makes so much sense. If your audience is all on, say, a niche forum about vintage synths, bumping out generic TikTok dances probably isn't the way to go.
Exactly. Find your people where they already are. Then the sources say, okay, now look at the competition, especially other successful faceless brands in your space.
Not to copy them, though.
No, definitely not. It's
Yeah.
about dissection. What makes them stand out? What's their tone, their personality? Which platforms work best for them? Are they doing things like building an email list? You're looking for gaps, for ways you can be different.
Right, carve out your own unique spot. And that leads right into the next big foundational piece the sources highlight, defining your brand's position and purpose, your why.
Hmm, this is so important. One source put it really well. People connect with why you do what you do, much more than just what you do, especially when there's no face to connect with initially.
That why becomes the core, doesn't it? The invisible heart of the brand.
It really does. And the sources suggest actually writing it down, a clear mission statement, maybe even that short elevator pitch. It forces you to get crystal clear on what you stand for.
Okay, so you know your audience, you've checked out the competition, you've got your why. Then comes personality and voice. One source calls this step 4.
Yeah, and they even mention using things like archetypes like, is your brand a rebel, a sage, a caregiver? It sounds a bit abstract, maybe, but it helps define a relatable identity that can guide all your communication.
Which is essential when you don't have facial expressions or body language to rely on. That voice is your personality.
It's the backbone, absolutely. And that identity shapes your brand story. The sources suggest framing it so the customer is the hero and your brand is the guide helping them on their journey. Makes it less about you, more about them.
Then you get into the practical stuff, like picking a brand name, something simple, memorable, and maybe a catchy slogan.
Right. Something short that sums up your essence. Think about those successful faceless brands. Often the name and slogan do a lot of the heavy lifting in conveying what they're about.
Okay, so audience, competition, purpose, personality, story, name, slogan. Then you get to the visuals, like colors, style, logo.
Exactly. One source specifically flags starting with a logo as a huge mistake people make. The visuals need to reflect all that foundational work you've just done. They're the expression of the identity, not the starting point.
And you don't necessarily need a pro designer right away.
Apparently not. The sources mention free tools like Canva are great for creating a basic logo and even a simple style guide. Pick your core colors, your fonts. That way you can keep things looking consistent across all your content, which is super important. Your image choices should always tie back to that guide.
Right, it's like building the house structure before you start picking out the furniture and paint colors.
Perfect analogy. And once that structure is solid, then the source pivot to actually creating the stuff that people will see, the compelling visual content. And this is where the tools, especially AI, really come into play. They're making things possible now that were just, well, much harder or more expensive before.
Okay, let's dive into those tools. The sources called out some specific AI options for creating content without you having to be on camera. For video first, Short AI.
Yeah, Short AI. It's presented as this really versatile tool, kind of specializing in those high engagement formats you see a lot now. Things like animated conversations, those fake text message videos, adapting stories from places like Reddit into video form.
Okay, so why would you choose Short AI? What are its strengths according to the sources?
Well, the pros listed are pretty compelling. First, really deep customization for backgrounds. They mention everything from pixel art to watercolor to manga styles, so you can get a very specific look.
Interesting.
Then, a huge voiceover library. Over 1,000 realistic voices, apparently, across more than 32 languages. That's massive for reaching different audiences.
Wow, okay. Global reach potential.
Definitely. Plus, it's apparently metaverse-ready, supporting 360 and VR formats, which is forward-thinking. And a really big one for creators, hurdles-free monetization.
What does that mean exactly?
Basically, you own the intellectual property of the content you generate, so you can put ads on it, sell it, whatever, without worrying about complex licensing issues with the tool itself.
Gotcha. That is a big deal. And how easy is it to use?
The sources describe a simple process. Pick a template, customize it, put in your script, choose your visuals, select a voiceover, then export and share. It sounds pretty straightforward. Among the tools listed, Short AI seems positioned as, maybe one of the most versatile and user-friendly, especially with that combo of customization, languages, and clear monetization.
Okay, good to know. What else for video? Faceless. Video was mentioned too.
Right. Faceless.video. As the name suggests, its whole deal is generating eye-catching faceless videos. The sources say it has advanced AI features for editing and animation.
And the why for this one?
It seems to be about smooth animations, really good for storytelling. Also, an interface that's supposedly easy for both beginners and more experienced creators.
Yeah.
And it comes with a bunch of templates for different niches or industries. The workflow sounds similar. Upload your stuff, use their tools to edit and animate, then publish.
Makes sense. What about short-form content, like TikToks, Reels?
For that, the sources highlight Autoshorts.ai. Its focus is specifically on creating short, punchy, faceless videos optimized for social media.
So speed is the key here.
Speed seems to be a major why, getting videos ready in minutes. Plus, it has creative templates tailored for specific niches. They mention things like writing, finance, tech, which helps make sure the content fits the platform and grabs attention quickly on mobile. You pick a template, give it your text or images or audio, and boom, export it ready for socials.
Okay, fast and niche focused. Then there was Story Short AI.
Yes. Story Short AI. This one is all about turning written stories into faceless videos, apparently popular for adapting Reddit posts or other fictional narratives.
So the why is automatic story-to-video conversion.
Exactly. It takes the text and helps generate animated visuals, captions, all that. Customizable fonts, colors, animations are mentioned as pros, along with producing decent HD quality output. Process is simple. Paste your story or link. Let the AI work its magic creating visuals, then you can tweak it and share.
Interesting. And one more for video. GenerateStory.io.
Right, GenerateStory.io. Another one focused on storytelling via faceless video, but maybe positioned slightly more towards things like explainer videos, animated educational content, or narrative pieces.
So its why is strong storytelling tools within the platform.
Seems like it. Tools for creating images, animations, shareable templates, and again, user-friendly interface. You pick a template, feed it your script, and the AI helps generate the imagery and narration. Then you edit and distribute.
Okay, so even just within faceless video, there's quite a range. Tools for conversations, tools for short socials, tools for adapting text stories, tools for explainers.
Exactly. The sources show that the why you choose a tool really depends on the specific kind of faceless video content you want to make, which should tie back to your overall brand purpose and who your audience is.
Makes total sense. But visuals aren't only video, are they? There's also static images, or maybe subtly animated ones.
Right, and this is where AI image generators come into the picture. Tools that let you create often incredibly realistic images just from typing in a text description.
Which sounds amazing. But the sources brought up a really important, maybe tricky aspect here, didn't they? The potential to easily create not safe for work content.
They did. And this distinction, NSFW versus SFW, is something the sources treat as absolutely critical to understand if you're using these powerful image tools.
Okay, let's break that down clearly. NSFW means
It's not safe for work. It's basically a label or a warning that the content isn't appropriate for viewing in a professional setting, like an office, or maybe even just in public, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
It implies you need to be cautious about where and when you view or share it because it could violate workplace policies or just make people uncomfortable.
and SFW is the opposite.
Exactly. Safe for work. This is content that's generally considered appropriate for all audiences
Yeah.
in any setting. It's free of explicit stuff, offensive material, graphic violence, basically, safe to open anywhere.
So what kind of things typically fall under that NSFW umbrella according to the sources?
They list a few main categories. Explicit or adult content is the obvious one, nudity, sexually suggestive themes. Then there's graphic violence depictions of gore, intense violent acts. Offensive or inappropriate language is another, excessive profanity, hate speech.
Okay.
And also, sometimes controversial or sensitive topics. This is a bit fuzzier, but could include things like political extremism or other highly polarizing content that's likely to cause significant offense in a general audience.
And this stuff can appear anywhere online, right? Forums, social media.
Oh, yeah. Websites, apps, private messages, even embedded in multimedia like videos or memes, sometimes with warnings, sometimes without.
And the sources were pretty clear about the risks, weren't they? Especially if you're the one generating or sharing it.
Very clear. In a work context, it could easily violate company policies, lead to disciplinary action, even getting fired.
Ouch. And personally.
Socially and personally, the risks include offending people, damaging relationships, harming your reputation. There can be emotional distress, too, for viewers who didn't consent or weren't expecting it. And, of course, there are legal risks. Distributing certain types of explicit content, especially involving minors or non-consensually, is illegal. Platforms have age restrictions and content policies for very serious reasons.
So, given all that, how do the sources suggest managing this responsibly?
Well, they mention using technology where possible, things like content filters on browsers or parental controls. That's one layer.
Or it's not foolproof.
None at all. So personal responsibility is huge. That means actively avoiding viewing or sharing inappropriate stuff in the wrong context. Thinking twice before you hit send or post, and knowing that you can often report harmful content if you see it.
And being aware of context.
Absolutely critical. Respecting boundaries, understanding your audience, and the setting before you share anything that might cross the line into NSFW territory.
Okay, so bringing this back to the AI image generators, the sources directly ask the question, is it actually a good idea to use these tools to create NSFW content?
They did, and based on the ethical arguments they laid out, their answer was a pretty firm no.
A firm no. Why? I mean, it's AI generated, not a real photo.
That's the crux of the ethical debate they presented. The reasoning behind the no includes several points. There's the potential for creating non-consensual deepfakes or revenge porn-style images. Even if the person depicted isn't real in the photo, it can still be based on real people or cause harm.
Okay, I see.
There's also the risk of these tools being used to bypass existing safety filters on platforms, flooding spaces with potentially harmful or exploitative material much more easily than before, and just generally contributing to the normalization and spread of content that can be damaging or unethical, even if it's synthetically generated. The line gets blurry, and the potential for harm, according to the sources, remains significant.
Wow. Okay. That's a really important perspective from the sources. It's not just about technical capability, it's about responsible use and the potential impact.
Yeah.
Secure, legal, ethical creation.
Precisely. So with that crucial context in mind, let's look at the specific AI image tools the sources mentioned, because some are discussed explicitly in terms of their SFW and NSFW capabilities. First up was Seduced.AI.
Seduced.AI. What's the story there?
Well, the sources present this one as being particularly powerful and, frankly, quite easy to use for creating high-quality content that definitely leans into NSFW territory. They explicitly mention it specializes in adult-oriented images and videos.
Like what kind of content specifically?
They give examples like boudoir style, lingerie shots, soft glam looks, content suitable for fan pages that cater to adult audiences, premium teasers, sort of softcore vibes.
Okay, so its strength seems to be in that specific niche.
That's how it's positioned. However, and this is important, the sources also say you can use it to generate SFW content too, like professional, non-explicit visuals. You just have to be careful with your prompts and specifically set parameters aiming for SFW results.
So it can do SFW, but its main advertised strength or specialty is NSFW, useful for certain platforms or niches. What about its features?
Good customization options are mentioned, using advanced AI models, GANs, stable diffusion for high-quality output, and a user-friendly interface. The process sounds like select your virtual models, tweak settings, generate.
Gotcha. And PromptChan AI was another one discussed in this context.
Yes, PromptChan AI, similar story in some ways. The sources describe it as capable of generating ultra-realistic, adult-oriented images, again explicitly labeling it as an NSFW AI image generator.
But like Seduced.AI, it can also do SFW.
Correct. The sources state clearly that you can use it to create realistic images, or even anime-style images, that are completely SFW, just by carefully crafting your prompts and avoiding anything explicit.
And the use cases reflect that duality.
They do. For NSFW, they list similar things: fan page content, premium teasers, softcore vibes. But for SFW, they mention things like Instagram-style posts, creating visuals for a luxury influencer look, or generating images for SFW promotional materials.
Okay, so both Seduced.AI and PromptChan AI are powerful image tools, noted by the sources for their NSFW capabilities, making them relevant for specific monetization strategies we'll get to. But they're flexible enough for SFW work too, depending entirely on the user's direction.
Exactly. It puts the onus on the creator to use them responsibly and appropriately for their intended purpose and platform.
Were there other visual tools mentioned?
Yes, a couple more. Leonardo AI, often mentioned alongside something called Comfy UI for users who want more granular control, is highlighted for offering, well, total control.
Total control, how?
Things like precise upscaling for high-res images, getting very specific or varied poses from your generated characters, and achieving strong visual consistency across multiple images, keeping your AI model looking the same.
And the why for using that combo? What kind of tasks?
The sources suggest it's great for more demanding projects. Think custom virtual photo shoots, creating specific visuals for a branded campaign, generating poster-quality artwork. It leans more towards high-end SFW needs, or perhaps very specific artistic NSFW uses where absolute control is paramount, rather than just quick generation.
Okay, high control, high quality. And Runway ML, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, Runway ML is often talked about for video AI, but the sources here mention its ability to take a static AI image and add subtle motion. A blink, a slight head tilt, maybe even basic lip syncing to an audio track.
Ah, so bringing still images to life a bit. What's the use case?
Making your visuals more dynamic and eye-catching. Perfect for Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, maybe short video ads, or even animated profile pictures. It adds that little spark to make static content more engaging, usually for SFW purposes.
Okay, so this really clarifies things. The why behind choosing a visual tool is so dependent on the output you need. Video or image, static or animated, the style, the level of control, and, crucially, that SFW versus NSFW consideration based on your content strategy and platform?
Absolutely. And understanding the capabilities, the potential risks, and the ethical points the sources raise about AI generation, especially around NSFW content, seems like step one before you even type your first prompt.
Right, so foundation built, tools understood, including the SFW, NSFW nuances, now the money.
Yeah.
How do you actually turn all this faceless creativity into revenue? The sources talked about specific platforms.
They did. And they highlighted Fanvue as potentially being like the go-to fan platform for AI creators at this moment.
Why Fanvue specifically?
The big selling point, according to the sources, is that it's designed to let creators monetize directly from fans, charging subscriptions, selling special content bundles, releasing exclusive stuff without the same risk of getting shadow banned or taken down that you might face on mainstream social platforms if your content pushes boundaries.
Ah, so it's more tolerant of certain types of content. Content perhaps created with tools like Seduced.AI or PromptChan AI.
That's exactly how the sources position it. They explicitly suggest using Fanvue for that kind of content. The fan page material, premium teasers, softcore vibes we discussed. The model is set a subscription price, maybe offer themed collections each month. It's presented as a space where content that might be closer to NSFW but still legal and within Fanvue's specific rules, can find its audience in a direct monetization path.
Okay, that makes sense. Matching the tool's output with a suitable platform. What about other models? Substack was mentioned too.
Right, Substack offers a different approach. The sources suggest using it more for things like sharing behind-the-scenes content about your creative process, offering premium written thoughts or analysis related to your niche, maybe selling digital assets like prompt packs for other AI users, or even running a related podcast.
So less about explicit visuals, more about community and insights.
Exactly. The model there is typically freemium. You give away some content for free to hook readers, and then paid subscribers get the exclusive stuff, the deeper dives, the full fantasy, as one source called it, which might be more narrative or about accessing your unique perspective.
Yeah.
This seems geared more towards SFW content and building a loyal community around your ideas or storytelling.
Okay. And for selling standalone digital products?
Gumroad or PayHip are the recommendations there. These platforms are great for one-off sales, things like downloadable prompt guides, maybe cheat sheets for using the AI tools effectively, digital lookbooks showcasing your AI creations, maybe even style presets if that fits your brand.
And the potential there.
The sources point out that even one really good, relevant digital product can become a source of passive income, selling month after month. This model works well for both SFW educational content and potentially for curated, non-explicit digital assets related to your brand's aesthetic.
And lastly, something about link in bio tools.
Oh yeah, essential infrastructure. Tools like TapLink or Card. The sources stress how important these are for creating a central hub. It's where you put all your links, your Fanvue page, your Substack, your Gumroad shop, your social media profiles.
Makes you look more professional and organized.
Totally. It gives your faceless brand that feeling of being official and makes it super easy for anyone interested to find everything you offer. It's a must-have, really, regardless of what type of content you're creating or how you're primarily monetizing.
So the sources really provide a whole toolkit for monetization, mapping specific platforms to different content types and goals, from direct fan support, possibly for more boundary-pushing SFW, RSoft, and SFW content, to building SFW communities, to selling digital goods.
Precisely. The when and why for using a certain type of content or platform comes back to your specific audience, your defined brand identity, and what your revenue goals actually are.
Okay, super helpful. Now, before we wrap this deep dive, let's quickly touch on the cost, because starting out, money is often tight. How helpful were the sources on this?
Pretty helpful, actually. A key point they make is that a lot of these tools, especially the AI ones, operate on a freemium model.
Meaning you can start for free?
Often, yes. You can usually access the core features and generate a certain amount of content without paying anything. It lets you experiment, learn the tool, and even start building your brand before you need to commit to a paid plan for more advanced features or higher usage limits.
Were there specific examples of free tiers?
Yeah, PromptChan AI was mentioned as offering free daily image generations for everyone, even though its paid plans start pretty low, around $5.99 a month. Seduced.AI also apparently has a free version with basic features alongside its premium plans.
And beyond the core AI tools?
Well, remember the free resources mentioned earlier, like using Canva for your logo and style guide. That saves on design costs initially. One source even mentioned a specific promo code floating around for 250 free faceless reels using a particular service, showing that it pays to look out for deals.
Right.
And platforms like Substack are inherently free to start building an audience on. You only potentially pay fees once you start charging subscriptions.
So the message is you don't need a huge pile of cash to get started.
Exactly. The sources indicate you can definitely begin building your faceless brand, playing with the tools, and creating content using free or very low-cost options, especially while you're still figuring things out and growing your audience.
Okay, that's encouraging. And finally, did the sources offer any overarching strategic advice for actually making all this work, beyond just knowing the tools and platforms?
Yes, absolutely. A few key strategic threads ran through the material. Consistency in your visuals was hammered home. Pick a look, a vibe, maybe a recurring AI character or model, and stick with it. Don't confuse your audience by constantly changing styles.
Makes sense. Recognition is key.
Then, quality over quantity. Don't feel pressured to churn out content constantly if the quality suffers. The sources suggest aiming for maybe 3 to 5 high-quality, engaging posts per week is often better than daily low-effort spam. Avoid burnout for yourself and your audience.
Good advice. What else?
Give your brand some kind of story or character, even if it's simple. People connect with narratives and personalities, even artificial ones. It helps build that emotional connection that you might otherwise get from a human face.
Build a world around the brand.
Sort of, yeah. Make it feel like there's something there beyond just the content itself. And the last big strategic piece of advice, echoed in multiple sources, start building an email list immediately, from day one if possible.
Why is that so crucial?
Because social media platforms change their algorithms, their rules, they can even disappear. Your email list is the one audience connection you truly own and control. It's your safety net.
Gotcha. So these strategic elements, consistency, quality, character, email list, they're kind of the glue holding the whole faceless brand strategy together.
That's a great way to put it. They turn just using tools into actually building something sustainable and recognizable.
Wow. Okay, we really have covered a ton of ground here. It feels like a comprehensive journey. We started with that vital foundational work, really digging into your audience, defining your unique purpose, crafting that non-visual brand identity before you even think about creating content.
The essential homework.
Then we dove into the specifics of the AI tool landscape, as presented by the source's tools for different kinds of faceless videos, tools for AI images, and importantly, we spent time on that critical distinction between SFW and NSFW content.
Yeah, defining those terms, understanding the types of content, the very real risks involved, and the ethical considerations the sources raise about generating certain types of content, especially NSFW, using AI.
And we looked at how specific tools like Seduced.AI and PromptChan AI are positioned in relation to those SFW and NSFW capabilities, and how others like Leonardo or Runway ML fit different visual needs.
Right, connecting the why of the tool to the what of the content you need to create.
Then we moved on to monetization, looking at platforms like Fanvue, Substack, Gumroad, and how they cater to different content types and revenue models, from direct fan support potentially, including more adult-leaning themes, to community building, to selling digital products.
And remembering that essential link in Bio Hub to tie it all together.
Exactly. And finally, we addressed the cost factor, highlighting the freemium models and free resources that can help you get started, plus those key strategic principles for making it all work long-term.
Yeah, the goal of this deep dive was really to synthesize all that from the sources and give you, the listener, a solid map. The knowledge, the tools, the strategies, the crucial distinctions you need to navigate this really interesting landscape of building a faceless brand today.
It definitely feels like a powerful toolkit, which leaves me wondering, as this AI technology just keeps getting better, more capable of creating hyper-realistic people, scenes, videos, what does that mean for the whole idea of authenticity online, especially when there's no real face involved?
That's a deep question.
And how will creators using these incredibly powerful tools strike that balance between unleashing their creativity and navigating the ethical responsibilities, especially when it comes to defining or maybe even intentionally blurring those lines between SFW and NSFW content depending on their goals and audience?
That balance between expression and responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels like the ongoing challenge and conversation in this space.
Yeah.
Definitely something to keep thinking about.
Indeed. Well, thanks for unpacking all of that with us today. Lots to mull over.